you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, okay. The thing was, it wasn't on.
Okay.
Weird. Again, weird, because I just used it for teaching. I must have accidentally pressed the button or something.
It's always something. Like I have never had a Zoom conversation where there wasn't some kind of technical inconsistency.
On a day when it's the most important. Like when yeah.
Yeah, basically. It's so nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. I actually hold on, I'm gonna connect my AirPods as well. I feel
Oh
like
yeah.
that always feels more personal.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I'm wearing mine. I like we're on the stripes. We're like
Yeah.
matching
Oh, I love
stripes.
that. Wait, I love
I
that.
know, it's so
This
cool.
is the only striped anything that I have, so I'm glad.
I have like two striped tops too. I don't have a load, but I
Yeah.
like it. We're on the same wavelength. So I've already started. I just hit the record button just
Okay.
so that we don't lose, anything. Like I said to you on the phone, it will be edited by my production team. So
Yeah.
we could just talk and it doesn't, whatever, it doesn't have to be, there's nothing like that needs to be perfect. Or if I say something that you're like, I don't want to talk about this, we could
Yeah.
totally cut.
I'll
So
just
it's
I'll
all
just
good.
say it and yeah.
Yeah. You can
Okay.
be like, no, stop.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, sounds good.
The only other thing
Um
is sometimes my Wi-Fi can be a little bit tricky.
oh, okay.
I think on weekends it's better because I live in an apartment building and supposedly, when there's like more traffic, like more
Yeah,
usage
yeah.
is bad. But I think hopefully today will be okay.
Okay. Um yeah, mine should be okay. Is this I use this for piano teaching. So is this, I'm not sure if it's like too quiet or
No, no,
like
I think it's perfect.
it's perfect. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, just let me know if
Yeah, no, it sounds good.
anything's weird.
I see your piano in the back too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, on my bed.
And mine is too. And I'm like I try to position, well, this is my living room, but all my
Uh-huh.
kids can see all my kids' toys and stuff all around. And
Uh-huh.
I'm trying
Do
to
you
position.
have a daughter, right?
Yeah, I have a toddler, almost 3-year-old girl, and then a 9-year-old boy.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay. I didn't know
Yes.
about the 9-year-old.
Yes, like I'm in like almost big kid land, and also still like little kid land, like
Yeah.
they have a pretty big age gap. They're like 6.5 years apart. And um yeah, it's motherhood is a wild ride. It's
Uh-huh.
like
Did you always want kids?
I did, but just like without knowing what that entailed, just like generally like, oh yeah, you have kids. That's like what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and actually that's what like really took me into my mental health, like education, I guess I would say, was
Uh-huh.
becoming a mom. Like for me, it was um really triggered by postpartum depression. And that's when I really came to be curious about like how does one understand their mental health and like care for their mental health, because it's not talked about
Mm-hmm. So how old were you
regularly.
then when,
So I
so
had
that's
my
9 years ago.
yeah, I had my first at 34. I was 34.
Okay. Yeah,
Um
so uh-huh.
yeah. Yeah, and I think I can't remember if I mentioned, but I was a yoga teacher before.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
That was my like main job. And I taught yoga for 15 years. And yoga is like all about the mind body. It's like
Yes.
spiritual
Yeah.
practice. And so I was really convinced that I had a good handle on my like well-being, physical and otherwise, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I really underestimated what it meant to have a child. Like
Uh-huh.
from logistics to like emotions to the stress. I just underestimated all of it, and it was especially shocking to me because I was like, well, I should know better. I like teach yoga, which is one of the
Right.
things that people do to manage their stress and to be mentally and emotionally well. So I felt I had this like not only did I have like the difficulty of depression and anxiety and panic, but like the shame
Yes.
on top
Yeah.
of it, right? Like just like feeling like, wait, I this shouldn't be happening to me, like I
Mm-hmm.
should know
Mm-hmm.
better, and just questioning my whole identity because of that. But anyway, it's why like, and I actually went off of Instagram shortly after I became a mom because it was really damaging to my
Like
just
other yoga to see other yoga teachers or
yeah,
like
like to
yeah.
see, well, it was like to see other yoga teachers and to see other moms, it was like, um, I just felt like I was like kind of in between the worlds of whoever I was up until the point of becoming a mom, and then not yet really having found my identity as a mom. And then what you see on social media, of course, is like everyone's highlight reel, everyone's like perfect, perfect. And this is especially
Mm-hmm.
like almost 10 years ago
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
I feel like now there's
It was
much
different.
more. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now there's like people like you that are
Mm-hmm.
go on there and you're really honest, and there's more people that are showing all the different sides. But that was not how Instagram started, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I
No,
like,
absolutely not.
yeah, I left. I would like scroll and just like feel bad about my life and feel bad about
Mm-hmm.
myself. And so finally I was just like, I'm just not gonna go on it. And I went off for a good 2 years, I would say, just like not using
Wow.
it at all. And
Uh-huh.
also feeling really scared because if you are anything you do professionally, you basically need to be on social media,
Yes. Yeah,
right?
especially now. That's also like 10 years ago I felt like that was different. And
Yeah, I
now it's
mean,
like I don't know. I don't know how I can avoid this. It's
yeah.
everywhere.
Like, yeah, for sure. That's a good point. Like 10 years ago, longer ago, you could just have like your own website and you could tell
Yeah.
people like, just go to my website. But now
Business
there's,
cards.
yeah, oh my God, I totally had business
Yeah.
cards. And anyway, and as I started to like come back onto Instagram over the last couple years, I was really protective about what I was taking in, like I
Yes.
deleted a lot of people. I unfollowed a lot of people. Like, why am I following people that are making me feel bad about my life? That doesn't make sense, like it
Mm-hmm.
just,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it felt really hard to do that because it was number one, admitting that I could be influenced in that way. And number two, I was really afraid I would hurt people's feelings, because some of them
Mm-hmm.
were my actual friends or acquaintances or colleagues,
Wow,
where
yeah.
I was just like, it doesn't make me feel good to see your stuff. So, anyway, so I kind of like rebuilt my Instagram and, was so happy to come across your profile. Yes, and you're right. It was Dr. Russell Kennedy when we were talking on.
Yes. Yes.
I feel
I know
bad.
the anxiety his handle. I know it's good. I feel like he would be proud
Be known as
to
that.
know. Yes, yeah.
Like
He's the
I
anxiety
don't.
doctor.
It's like I don't know his name, but he's the anxiety doctor.
Yeah.
But yeah, like following him, and that's how I initially came across you and your account, and I was just so blown away because you're an Asian woman. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
guess I should ask you how you identify, but like that's what I took in, and I was like, wow, she's like really being open about her mental health, things she obviously cares about deeply. And I actually just saw a post that you said where you said something like, "Oh, my life is perfect" or "everything is great," and
Oh
then
yeah.
you're like, "Just kidding."
Just kidding. No, I had a
Yeah.
similar experience actually with the social media. What it wasn't 2 years, but I think it was almost a year that I was also off. I only kept Facebook because for me, Facebook was like boring, like
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah,
a little less
yeah.
aesthetically pleasing. Like just people. I don't know. There are a lot of older people on there now.
Yes, yeah.
So I didn't find myself scrolling and comparing as much, but I did take a long break. I experienced a lot of what you felt, kind of like a FOMO feeling, and like, oh my God, am I not making the best of my resources, and so I actually, yeah, I made a whole new account. Like, I didn't just deactivate. Like, this is a new account that I've had for like, how long now? I want to say I made it in 2020. So it's
Oh,
only been like,
wow.
yeah, like 3 years.
Yeah.
And I also did the same thing, unfollowed a lot of the mental health pages I was following and like some friends as well because growing up in like the Mormon church. I'll talk a little bit about this. Like growing up in Mormon culture, it's like, and especially living in Utah for my undergraduate, it was like that was the norm. Like people get married very early, they have kids very early, and I was just seeing my feed filled with that. Like that was the only thing I saw. It's kind of calmed down now because everyone's married now and they have their kids now. They don't post as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
There was a period though where it was nonstop, and I was over here like really struggling. I was trying to figure out my mental health, and like relationships have always been really hard for me. So that was just very, very, very painful. And I had, yeah, anyway, I had a similar experience with social media.
Yeah. You didn't grow up in Utah. You went there, you just went there for
No, yeah,
grad
I,
school?
for my undergraduate, and I went to BYU, but I grew up in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Wait, is that where you're from? No,
I grew
you're
up
from
in the
California though.
I grew up in the Bay Area, but I went to UCLA. So I lived in LA for 10 years.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
from the Valley, Northridge.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, have you visited there before?
Yeah, I have some friends who've lived in around there. I think Northridge actually. One of my college friends was from Northridge.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. So you lived in LA your whole life? You grew up like born and raised there and you only went to Utah for college for
Yes.
undergrad. Okay. So that's like a
Yeah.
must how was that transition?
Okay, yeah. So I wanted to kind of talk about. I feel like this, the list of questions you sent me and all the work that you're doing. I feel really grateful because I think that identity and race and ethnicity, it's something that I think about a lot, but not for myself personally. It's weird, and I didn't realize that until you asked me
Oh
to be
wow.
in. Yeah, and it was a little bit like I really have to be honest with myself and not just give the answers that I think that people would want to hear. Like I feel like I just want to be very authentic about what my experience was, which is I think I grew up around a decent amount of Asian people. Like the Northridge has, I mean, it's not like a huge Asian population, but there's enough. And I spent a lot of time at an after school program where it was like primarily Korean people. And my mom also, she's a piano teacher, and a lot of her students were Korean. And so like growing up, I would like become friends with them, and so like there was a lot of I had a lot of Asian friends, a lot of Korean friends specifically. But I do feel like, during that time, that's like early 2000s, the celebrities of that time were like Lindsay Lohan, Hillary. I was obsessed with Hillary Duff.
Oh
Posters
wow.
everywhere. Yeah, my
Uh,
entire room. Kelly Clarkson. Just like Britney Spears was big at the time, and so these were like the models that I had to look up to as like the beauty standard. And I feel like when I was a kid, I didn't really consciously know, like I didn't have the awareness to be like oh, I look different from them. I just knew that I wanted to look like them. And I don't know that there were any Asian celebrities at the time. Like I'm trying to think. I'm like,
Lucy Liu.
yes, Lucy Liu, and like
That's
like
yeah.
Charlie's Angels, right?
Yeah.
Or Charlie, yeah,
That's
whatever.
it's like literally you can think of
That's it.
one person basically. Yeah.
Yes, yes. um, yeah, and I just remember like always wanting to look like these women, and I feel like the awareness though, when I really started to feel a sense of like otherness, it was when I went to the Mormon church for the first time. Like I remember that moment so distinctly, and I really don't want to like hate on the church. I don't want to like go into that stuff, but this was my experience. I was walking into the congregation and noticing that I was the only Asian one. I think there was maybe one other girl, but and then immediately after that, feeling a sense of shame and I wanted to hide. And there was a kid from school actually that I recognized there. And I remember the whole time being like, I don't want him to see me. Like I just felt so different from everyone. And I don't think I've ever felt that before. So that was a hard experience for me, and it continued to be that way all throughout my church experience.
How old were you?
And
How old were you when you first joined?
yeah, I was 12,
Okay.
I believe. Yeah, I was 12. And it was also at that time that I think I started to really struggle with my emotions, and I wasn't in therapy or anything. I didn't know anything about, um, I didn't have any emotional awareness. Like I couldn't even really say like what emotions I was experiencing. Like I couldn't put words to it. I was really shy too. Like I think up until I was like, I don't know, 14, like I was very, very shy. And like you said, like this isn't really talked about in the Asian community, like especially at that time too. Like my mom never brought it up, like no one ever talked about it. But I also started feeling a sense of like um, just very different from the people around me because my emotions were so big all the time. And I was starting to like that's what around 12 is when I was really starting to struggle deeply, and at the same time feeling more disconnected from the Asian community. And I
Hmm.
think like that after school that I went to was kind of like shutting down around that time also. And so it was like, I don't know, I found myself like slowly drifting from the Asian community and just like trying to figure out what was going on internally. Like I was crying all the time, even at school. Um, so it's been really interesting for me to think about this because I think I've always struggled with like, I don't feel Korean enough. I don't feel Asian enough, but I'm also not anything else, you know?
Yeah.
Like that was very, very hard for me. I also think something that came up a lot that I still struggle with now is, and I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but like I think a lot of Korean people, especially like the beauty standard in Korean culture, is so ridiculous.
Hmm.
And like people you have to be like tiny and just like perfect, right? Like Korea is the number one place for plastic
Plastic
surgery.
surgery. Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. 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 My
Yeah.
I have a mixture of family that are in the States and still in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So we went back and we were lucky enough to go back and forth a fair amount through my childhood and know all my cousins. And I have cousins who at like when they were children, like age
Mm-hmm.
12, I want to say, were getting like eyelid surgery.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't even know what they went on to do. Like, I'm sure much more, like
Right.
that
Right.
was just the start of things. And it was just this, like, I mean, and look, people can do whatever they want. But what I find really worrying is the messaging that is giving a developing child who's like they haven't even grown into their physicality yet, and they're basically being told like, hey, something needs to be fixed on your literal face.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so normal there. It's like the cosmetic
It is.
surgery places there, and like, and now I have friends that are my age, so like we're in our early 40s, like that are excitedly going to Korea to get their like, whatever, all the injections and everything. And it's like, ooh, this like exciting thing where they get to go and it's inexpensive. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, oh, okay, I want people to whatever you want to do to look your best, but like have they considered the deeper layers of what's going
Yeah.
on there with like your how you're judging yourself, your physicality, and like, are you real is this like you accept and love yourself, and also you just want to make yourself feel like get rid of
Mm-hmm.
wrinkles or whatever? Or is it like what I think is happening with most people is like you haven't even considered all the deeper layers of what this decision is,
Mm-hmm.
because we're all just like bombarded with like the beauty standards. And I think like your point about having been young and having these idols, and I liked the same. I was already in college when like Kelly Clarkson was won that first American Idol, and I also adored her. But just this like the constant subliminal bombarding we are
Yes.
getting as people of color, um that like, oh, you genuinely love these people, but you're never going to be like them, you're never going to
Yeah.
look like them, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's like it's really important stuff to dig into and get, like it's like sitting with yourself and investigating those feelings and how they impacted you.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people don't do it. You're like, to your point of you saying like, well, I didn't really think about it
Yeah.
before. I think because we were really distracted by the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like trying to achieve those beauty standards or other successes and etc. But yeah, sorry, the Korean,
No, yeah.
there's a particular specific kind of intensity within Korean culture. I also had this too with my family, my relatives, where they just have always felt very free to comment on
Yeah.
my what I look like, what my body is, like both good and bad stuff in their opinion. But it's like very like just like blah, like
Mm-hmm.
they'll
It's
see me,
normal. It's
yeah, they just
normal.
see me and then they'll be like, oh, you've been eating a lot, or
Right.
like, or
Right.
wow, you look really good, you lost a lot of weight, like all this stuff
Yes.
from being a child. This is the stuff that, right? I don't know if you had
No, no, no.
similar.
Yeah. Yes, and I was gonna say because I am 5'7.5" ish,
You're
and
tall.
that exactly that's
Yeah,
like, and that's what I've heard my
yeah,
entire life. But
exactly.
also, I feel like I don't know if it's because I'm tall, but like my appetite has always been bigger than
Mm.
the kids around me that I grew up with, and I was just like bigger in general, like just as a fact, like I was bigger. And when you would look at pictures, and I'm like towering over my friends, and that was just what I heard from everyone. And I think like when you're a kid and you don't know what to make of that, when everyone's being like, you're so tall, it's like I think I took that as a negative thing. And I used to like Google how to be shorter, and I used to like look at my friends and just like I would shrink. And I feel like it's still something that I have to work on, like taking up space and like sitting with open posture. Like I just feel a natural, like I have to be small and I have to be cute. Like that was a big thing too, I have to be this cute Asian, have a high voice. That's another thing. Like my voice is a little bit lower and I used to hate it. Also, I've got like slightly wavy hair, and all the Asians have like stick straight
Right.
hair. So
Mm-hmm.
this was yeah, this was hard for me. And then people would, like, I kind of drifted from Asian groups. I don't know why, but they're always in groups. And I love
Yeah.
it. I love it, but I also felt like, why can't I fit in to this group of people? And a lot of times Koreans would like speak in Korean too, even when they're American, they're Korean American, and they would speak in Korean among each other, and like my Korean is not great. And I would just feel like slowly like I'm gonna get out of this group. And then eventually, people started using terms like, oh, you're a whitewashed Asian. Like I got told that all the time, and I don't hear this as much anymore, but growing up everyone was like, you look half white. Like I got that all the time. And I loved it. Like it felt like, I don't know, like I just really liked that because I never
Mm.
felt like fully Asian, and I was just I don't know. I really struggled with my identity that way.
I think it's because wait, did your mom was your mom born in Korea?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
both my
So yeah, so I think when you're raised by immigrant parents, there's so much uncertainty about like where you belong.
yes.
And I would imagine ever since I'm starting this podcast and talking to so many people, basically all my guests are, whether they were our first generation, like, born in Asia and coming over here, or just their parents. Um, I've been thinking so much just about how insane it must have been for our parents to have left their country and landed here. And everyone talks about like the American dream from like a
Right.
professional economical standpoint. And I think a lot of times Asian people are left out of the conversation when it comes to like racial inequality, because there's just this like, oh, well, oh, Asian people end up doing better, like getting good jobs, or like
Right.
they get to live in nice neighborhoods. There's this assumption, which is all incorrect. Like when you start looking into it, it's like, it's totally not the whole story. But so they look at things like, oh, like your immigrant parents were able to succeed in a certain way, but like what they must have gone through emotionally and like mentally, just arriving in this new country and not being white, like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sure, like that's why like Chinatowns and Koreatowns have appeared in various places throughout the US, but like those are very specific localized areas. For the most part, are like, I feel like a token a lot of the time in 2023 as an American born person, I just think back to like how my parents must have felt, and it's just like I can't even process, just like,
Mm-hmm.
and for it to they probably had no place to really delve into what that felt like for them, like how they probably didn't even process it within themselves, because it's not part of our cultural, like tendency in, like it's not like
Right. No,
everyone's
yeah.
sitting there talking about mental health, talking about, you're just like focused on like achieve, like that's the main
Work.
thing,
Mm-hmm.
and survive. They're thinking just about survival.
Right. I
So
was about to say that. Yeah.
yeah, right. So they don't have, and all that is stored, though, it has to be stored in their bodies, in their emotional
Mm-hmm.
bodies. And um, so then, we arrive, their children arrive, and we look like them, but we don't feel like them because we feel American.
Yeah.
But then we don't look like Hillary Duff or Lindsay Lohan or any of
Yeah.
them, but we feel like them. When we hear them talk about their music, or we see them acting characters in films or shows, we relate to that because we've gone to the American high schools. But like,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't see us that way because we don't look like, we clearly look different. So I think it's like there's a particular thing with Asian Americans with like that are second generation, like us, that we are just like so caught in the middle and don't fit in either, in any, group. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting
Mm-hmm.
that you brought up, like, even as you were kind of moving from friend group to friend group, that even amongst other Korean Americans, you're like, oh, there's something that's not really,
Right.
and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's just, yeah, it's really, it's hard. And there couldn't have been a conversation about this before because our parents, nobody came before them, right? At
Right.
least in our
Right.
specific situations. Um, and I mean, I guess that's why we're having this conversation now, is to try to make sense of it.
Right. And I
And
really appreciate all of this. Like, it's been really important for me to just explore these questions. Like, I feel more a sense of purpose and understanding of myself, which is, like I said, it's always something I've struggled with. There's also, like, because my mom, English is not her first language, so she, like, struggled in the beginning, and she still does. She still struggles a lot of the time to understand what people are saying. And I think that people look down on that, but especially when you're Asian, they get this sense of like, there's this like, oh, you're Asian, so you must be respectful and quiet, and that I hate that so
yeah,
much. And I've always felt, even though no one said it explicitly, I have felt that in mostly white communities, where they see me that way. They see me as this like fragile little quiet thing. So I've really had to work on, especially as someone who is very shy, like just speaking up and, like I said, taking up space. That's kind of something I'm still working on as well. And also, my parents are divorced. Like, they divorced pretty early. And so I grew up with my mom. And at least from the friend groups that I had in the Asian community, there weren't a lot of divorced parents.
Mm.
Like, I don't know if that's something you've looked into at all, but like,
I
I
think,
felt very ashamed.
yeah, I think, I mean, I haven't thought about it, but right as you say it, I can just immediately think of all my Asian friends that I grew up with, and I can't think of anyone that's divorced. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I totally
And
hear the
it's not
truth.
that there isn't conflict. There is
Of
so much
course.
conflict. there's there's so much wrong I feel with,
Yeah.
you know.
I think it goes back to I think it goes back to Asian culture not really encouraging people to really understand their own psyches, you know,
Yes.
and like I think it even goes back to the way we are seen by the white community, like you said, of their expecting us to not take up that much space. And I see it
Mhm.
constantly to this day. Like I see it,
Mhm.
and we also I also like play into that a lot of the time because I mean, I think it's in my DNA.
Mhm.
Also, it's in my personality. Like I don't want to upset people. You know, I want everyone
Totally.
to accept me. I don't want to be, I don't want to further other myself with anything that I do or not do. So like I always defer to like making space for, I've gotten a little bit different actually as a mom. um and that's actually an amazing thing that motherhood has gifted me with is because I have like the mama bear kind of,
Uh-huh.
so sometimes I'm like with my kids and I'm naturally taking up a lot of space because there's this
Oh.
one time where it's like my older child, my little one in the stroller, and my dog was also with me. And in that situation, I get really angry if other people don't make space for me
Oh,
because
wow.
I'm like, dude, I'm a mom with like three living, beings that,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and it happens like fellow mothers and fellow parents tend to, we get each other, but a
Yeah.
lot of times like people don't get it. And what I think the anger that's what's triggered is that person on the other side, I think, is used to a person that looks like me making space for them. And I'm
Mhm.
used to playing that role too. I'm used to being,
Mhm.
when it's just me, I'm used to being like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I'm the nice little Asian person, like, oh, I'll scoot out of your way. I don't want to cause trouble. But then as a mom, because I'm doing it on behalf of my children, and also physically it's hard to like,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
like lug kids around and everything. I see it in a totally different way, and I see the wrongness in the other person's
Mhm.
behavior.
Do you think
um
that that's translated into when you're not with your kids, you're just out? I don't know if you ever have the time to
I
just be
know,
out by
yeah, no,
yourself.
no, it is, I mean, it doesn't, I'm aware of it more now. So I'm
Mm.
aware more of when I do defer, when I naturally defer.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then I'm like, why did I do that? Like why am I?
Right.
And then sometimes I won't, like if I'm more aware, if I'm more like, like active about like how I'm gonna move through this moment. um I have more confidence to
Uh-huh.
be like, I don't have to make myself small and like go out, like be worried about inconveniencing someone else. Like we're all human, of course, like I always want to be respectful and
Mhm.
polite, but like this feeling of like making myself smaller because I'm an Asian woman.
Mhm.
Um, no, like I don't want to feed that anymore.
Mhm.
But I have to say it really was like becoming a mother, and especially having my daughter, because it's more like, what example am I going to set to her? Like
Mhm.
what do I want her to take in? And
Yeah, absolutely.
it's just, and yeah, it's just
I
made,
love that. I love that you're being conscious of that. Like
I
if
mean,
I don't know if
it's,
I want kids, but if I ever do, like I'm gonna do my best to
well,
do that.
because I know how much that I both consciously and unconsciously or subconsciously, I don't know what the right word is, like absorbed from my own parents, particularly my mother. I think as
Yeah.
a daughter, I think you naturally take, like I see my daughter is watching me all the time. Like she's and there's something innate in children that, like, of course you love your parents. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of have to love your parents and have them love you because you're fully dependent on them to
Mm-hmm.
keep you alive, literally, right? And but my kids and I have a good relationship. Like we have fun and all that. But I'm saying, like, even if you had a bad relate or like not a close relationship with your parent, as I think a lot of people my age feel like with our immigrant parents, like
Yeah.
we like, yes, they raised us, kept us safe, but like, a lot of people are now like, oh, I didn't feel loved, I didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
seen, all of that. And so I really don't want my kids to have that. And but beyond that, like I know how much they are taking in from me, and so I have a real responsibility to, like, show them the best possible version of, like, a human, like how a human being can be.
Mm-hmm.
And that involves not only being like kind and empathetic and looking out for others, but also like looking out for ourselves and knowing that we are of equal worth to every other person, and
Absolutely.
um but yeah, it doesn't come naturally because that's not how we
No.
were
Mm-hmm.
raised, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when did you start playing piano?
I started very young when I was, because my mom's a piano teacher. That's my
Oh, is that your bird?
kid. Yeah. He just had a little bath, so he should be
Oh
calm
my
and
gosh. That
yeah.
that is just the best. Does he
I
just
know.
float around your home? Like he just floats around?
Yeah, he does.
Does
And
he
he's got like separation anxiety, so he's
Oh
always
man.
wherever I am, he's there.
Oh my
So
gosh. Did he move with you from New York?
yeah, well, I actually got him in Utah. I just realized
Oh.
that I never answered your question specifically about Utah. We'll go back to that, but no, I got him in Utah. We went to LA together because I was there. I did school online during COVID, the first year of COVID. It really sucked, but it is what it is. And then we moved to New York together.
Oh
And
man.
then we went back to LA, and now we're here.
That's
He's
so
a well
cute.
traveled bird. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, we don't need to go back to the Utah thing, but I think the main thing is just that um, Utah was very hard for me. I mean, stepping into church for the first time was one thing. Moving to Utah was like culture shock, partly because of everyone was getting married and they were like
Mhm.
18 years old.
It's
They were
wild.
18 years old, dating, everyone was like dating everyone. That's just a normal thing there. Without being like committed to one person, like you're just like, oh, I'm going to go on a date with this person and see how it is with this person. But the thing was, no one ever asked me out.
Oh,
No one asked me out. And that was
wow.
weird for me because I have always felt, I don't know, like, I mean, I had insecurity issues in high school and like middle school, but I've always felt kind of like wanted by,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
boys in my
Yeah, you were
community.
used to
Yes,
getting
like getting some
attention. Yeah.
attention at
Yeah.
least. And then I entered this world and I was like, not a single person. Not a
Wow.
single person. And that made me wonder, that made me think, is it because I don't look like everyone? And I think it is. I really think it is. And I was scared too moving to Colorado because huge white population. Like I think it's like 95%. I can't remember if that's Colorado or like Boulder specifically, which is where I am now. But I almost didn't come here. And that
Mhm.
was one of the big reasons because I was like, don't want to go through that again. And when I came here for the audition too, it was funny. Me and there was one other Asian girl who was in the or auditioning for the piano program, and we just kind of naturally like gravitated to each other. And then we were talking. We were like, we are the only Asian people, like not only Asian, like people of color. That
Mm.
everyone was white, and I was like, I don't know if I can go through that again. You know, it was I don't use this word lightly, but it was like traumatic
Mm.
in a way. And I don't know, I was kind of like, is any scholarship worth going through that again? You know? But
Did you
anyway,
did you want to go to BYU, right? Is it BYU, Brigham Young
yeah.
University? Yeah. Was that your choice to go?
Yes and no. It like at the time I was not you know, when I joined the church at 12, and I feel like that's late enough that I already started having kind of my own opinions, and you know, like I didn't want to go to church, like, and a lot of people in the church have grown up in the church for generations, like
Right.
that's their normal. um so at that age, like I wasn't super into church. And my mom and I, we visited BYU because everyone was like, oh, you have to apply. Like, they've got a great music program. So I'm like, okay, I'll at least apply. We visited, and I was like, I don't like the vibes here. I don't want to come here. I actually left telling my mom, like, I absolutely will not come here. And then, but I had only applied to two other schools, and one was my top choice, but it's extremely competitive. I made it past the pre-screening. They narrowed it down to like 11 people. And I didn't tell my teacher this, but I totally screwed up my audition
Oh man.
for that round. Yeah, and so I didn't get accepted. I cried a lot. And then the other option was USC actually. I got into USC, but they didn't give me as much of a scholarship. And at
Mm.
BYU, after my audition, one of the teachers actually followed me out, and he was like, you played very, very well. Like they extended my audition time, and they said, I kind of flopped the ACT. I had to take the ACT for this, and
Yeah.
he was like, do you think you could retake the ACT? So and then also as a member of the church, you get like, tuition is crazy, crazy cheap.
Mm.
So at that point, it was between BYU or USC. And even now, there's a huge part of me that's like, I wish I had gone to USC. I'm
Mm.
very, very grateful for the experiences I had at BYU. I mean, tuition, saving money being one thing, but also like I did make a lot of good friends there. I think I had a good musical experience, but I got very involved in the church while I was there because I think it was just natural. Like everybody is very religious there, so like I had to immerse myself in that. Um, but I also really struggled, I think, with my mental health, and and then also, yeah, dealing with just like, why doesn't anyone ask me out? Like, why is no one
Mm.
asking me out in this culture where everybody is dating everybody?
Right.
It just felt, I was so confused, not gonna lie. Like
Yeah.
that sounds weird, but
No,
like,
it doesn't sound weird at all. It's like the ultimate form of sort of like acceptance is especially, I mean, it doesn't matter what age you are, you know, like
mm,
that's a good thing. Like I think when was my first relationship? It was probably in high school, but even before then, it was always about like liking somebody, having a crush, and then them
mm-hmm.
like a
Code names.
literal, yeah, oh my God, code names totally, but like a literal dopamine hit when someone liked you back,
Mm-hmm.
or just like even if someone like that you didn't liked you, it was just like, oh, that's like I'm okay, I'm accepted,
Exactly.
I have value. And so to have that suddenly, just like not be something that is coming to you, it had must have been really weird. And also like when you have a sense of why something is happening, when you're like, this has to do with the fact that I'm Asian,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you're thinking that. But like you can't actually say that to anybody, or if you
Right.
did ever say that, somebody you were invalidated or whatever, like it's crazy making, when you're just kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
I know this is down to my race, but like I can't prove it, like I can't
Right.
I can't really talk to other people about it. I don't know. That's a lot to have to process. But so did you go straight from Utah, then you came to New York after that?
No, I went to LA.
Oh, you went back to LA. Sorry. Okay.
Yes, because I, or no, wait. Yeah, no, I did. And then that's when I did the year of school from
Okay.
home. Yeah.
Oh, right,
For
right,
my
right.
for my New
Because it
York
was
City program.
right. It's just
Yeah.
you went back to LA because it was 2020, basically, because it was because of COVID and you had to do it remotely.
I didn't
Was
why
it?
I actually like cannot remember why I moved back to LA. But like I didn't know, I wasn't prepared for COVID.
Right.
And then it happened, and yeah, so I was
So
just interesting.
you did a year at LA and then you came to New York.
Yes.
Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
then did you feel like, were you in more of a community that felt, because I mean, New York is like one of the ultimate melting pots or whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want
Mm-hmm.
to call it. So, but then I'm not sure like what your immediate school music world circles looked like. I'm guessing you weren't like one of two people of color, or I don't know, what was it
No,
like?
there were, I think the school is, um, I want to say like there's more people of color. Like
Right.
more, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I noticed that immediately. I did feel I actually remember noting that as one of the first things that I felt. Like it was comfortable. Um, I also think though, I don't know that I was like given a fair chance socially in New York City because of COVID. Because of
Mm,
COVID, and everyone was awkward. I don't know if
mm,
it was because of COVID and everyone became like socially awkward and distant, but I do think it's likely that it was part of it.
for sure. Yeah.
I had a hard time actually making friends, which was so weird for me. So weird because at this point in my life, I'm like, I feel like I'm a charismatic person. I am social, like I'm open, and I really struggled to make like meaningful friendships. And
Yeah.
that stayed the entire 2 years I was there. Like, I think I've made more friends here in the month that I've been here than the 2 years I was in New York City.
I think COVID totally has a lot to do with it. Remember, when New York was like the main first place that COVID,
Yeah.
like really hit in the US, and um I think it had a really dramatic effect on the way people interacted.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah, I think and I would
And then
imagine.
also, sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
no, go ahead.
Um, I think because I was surrounded by musicians, not Asian American musicians, but also people who came like from Korea, people who came from Korea, from
Mm,
China, like, and there's like a language barrier, there's a cultural difference, and as musicians in the classical music world specifically, there is a lot of competition, a lot of sneakiness, and just I don't know what your intentions really are. Um, Even amongst the teachers,
mm,
and I feel like faculty relationship, they really have to model for students like the friendship and all of that, and there was none of that. It was very separate, and I think that also has to do with why I struggled to make friends. Like there was always a divide in some way. So,
yeah. I can totally picture that, like if it's already competitive to get to where you all are, right? Like
mhm,
just to be
mhm.
there. Um what what does your I'm so curious to know, just on staying on the topic of piano, like
Yeah.
what like, what does your day look like when I mean, how many
As a
hours are you,
student,
yeah, as a student, and like,
yeah.
how much of it are you, I mean, you go and perform as well? Like, does it all culminate in like a big performance and just like, what does it look like? I'm so curious.
Yeah, practicing is a big part of my life, but I think my relationship with practice has changed a lot for the better.
Mm.
It used to be this very obsessive, rigid, I have to meet this number goal kind of thing for me. And I think this is also an Asian thing where you take pride, like you wear this like how much stress you have as it
The
like
martyrdom.
yeah,
Hmm.
yes,
Yeah.
like oh well I only slept 3 hours last night, like you know, like always having anxiety. Like I really embraced that lifestyle for a long time, and then um yeah, but now I think I found a really healthy balance, like a relationship with practice. I enjoy it a lot more. So like my day will have, right now it's like 3 to 4 hours of practicing. Growing up it was like I'm not joking, it was like 6 to 8 hours, and I would
Wow.
like not be able to sleep if I didn't meet the numbers. Even if I'm like a zombie, I'm not even fully there, I'm like I have to get those hours, I have to do it because that's my identity, you know. And so now it's not like that. But I do spend a lot of time practicing, and um, I teach also now. I wasn't teaching a lot before, but I teach now. I have my own studio. Um, and yeah, I'm taking classes. The DMA program, the doctoral program, looks a lot different from like my master's experience and my undergraduate experience. They're a lot more, I feel more respected, I think.
Mm.
And the classes are a lot more discussion based. So I'm doing a lot, like I have to do lectures and stuff. So
That's
I'm
cool.
preparing for that. I'm in a chamber group, which is like, do you know what chamber music is?
I feel like I kind of know, but just let
Yeah,
us
yeah,
know
yeah.
what that is. Yeah.
It's just basically a group of instrumentalists. So I'm in a group. I'm in a piano quartet. So that means it's me, a violinist, a violist, and a cellist.
So cool.
And yeah, and we have a concert coming up. There are competitions. I'm getting a little old. Like I'm reaching the age limit for competitions. I think it's most of them are like 30 years old, which I think is really unfair. But
It's like sports, professional
yeah,
sports.
yeah.
Like once you
Hmm.
hit 30, it's like, oh, you're old now. Like
Yeah,
what?
like why?
In what world is 30 old for anything, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
So
what
yeah, that's kind of what I do. I feel like teaching, going to class, doing my chamber stuff, practicing, finding a balance between you know my mental health, like balancing my trauma stuff, which is really big still, and music, and also like learning how to combine that, which I surprisingly, very shockingly, I wasn't expecting this, but the school is so good about having these kinds of discussions. Actually, like I feel like this is aligning perfectly with this chapter of my life, because they're,
Mm.
even though it's mostly a white community, they are very transparent about where they are lacking, um, and really kind of changing the direction of music. Like I'm very happy and pleasantly surprised, and I feel just supported, so supported in this environment. I actually went to a concert last week. I wasn't expecting this, but it was all Asian faculty, Asian composers. And
Wow.
I got emotional. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, and I wasn't expecting that, you know, I wasn't expecting that program. I wasn't expecting to feel that way, but I was like, this is radically different from anything. Like I haven't been to a concert like that. So it's really nice.
I mean, this is why that saying representation matters. It does matter, you know, like when
Absolutely.
it's the opposite to you having followed those, all like Britney Spears and everybody else. It's the
Hmm.
opposite to that, because when you see people that look like you, like
Yeah.
it does something wonderful to you, like on a really
Hmm.
deep layer, and um
Even if you're not aware of it, like even if
exactly. Yeah. And
it
that's the
definitely
thing, is
does.
like, I think a big reason why I felt so urgently called to start this podcast was because of the rise in Asian hate crimes, and feeling like simultaneously, like, how could they do that? How could this happen to especially elderly, you
Hmm.
know um helpless Asian people? How could that happen? But also, like, oh, of course it's going to happen. Like, they've always been racist against us. um and just so much of it hitting me, it just like reading the story, seeing the videos of like these attacks
Yeah.
happening. And I don't think, I was lucky that didn't happen to anyone I know it personally, but it felt personal.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I'd watch it and I'm like bawling my eyes. I can still remember some of the first videos I saw of like elderly people just being in broad daylight, just being
Hmm.
attacked. And,
Hmm.
it
I
just,
remember like calling my mom and being like,
oh my
"You
God.
have to be
Yeah.
careful. Like, don't walk alone anywhere. It's
Yeah.
hard." Yeah.
Yeah. And it just like, it's just triggers something on like a really deep, like in like a within our deepest fibers, I feel like, because it- they look like us, they are like us, we are the
Hmm.
same. And so I think, just I just think I was thinking, like, what can I possibly do to add anything, like add any sort of positive impact to what happened, not just like the hate crimes that really, hit the new mainstream news and everything during the last few years, but just generally as an Asian American, moving through this world. And it's just to like put this conversation out there. It's just so important. And um yeah, I mean, the fact that you got emotional seeing all that Asian representation at the concert, like that, yes, that means something. And it's the antidote to the posters you had in your bedroom when you were growing up.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and again, it's like, it's not this, it isn't always, I don't think it's always conscious, and I don't think it's front of mind for many people. And I think a lot of it has to do with many Asian people, I should say. And I think it has to do with the fact that for the up until COVID years, Asians didn't weren't walking around like, we may have been ridiculed. Our parents' accents may have been made fun of.
Hmm.
Our food may have been made fun of for smelling
Hmm.
weird.
Oh
But like,
yeah,
but
totally.
like we weren't like walking around frightened for our lives for the most part,
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
almost like, oh, well, it's not bad. That's not bad.
Right.
Right? Like, what
Yeah.
kind of barometer is that? Like, oh, it's only bad if you're scared for your life. Like, you know what I
True.
mean? Like
Yeah.
the
I
other
didn't think
stuff,
about that.
it's also bad. It's because, like, again, it's like just it's an attack on each person's humanity and worth if we're not treated equally, right? Um,
Hmm.
and I think that is why, like, there has been such a surgence, I don't know if that's a word, lately, of more Asians having conversations around mental well-being and just like the importance of it going out there. And I mean, it is great that we I think it is because we identify with the American side of ourselves that we
Hmm.
are able to go there, right? To
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like, going back to some of my cousins that are still in Korea, um like, one of them, we're really close. We're close in age. She also has two kids, and her English is really good. My Korean, like your, like my, I can order food in restaurants, but like, I could never
Hmm.
have this conversation in Korean, like,
Hmm.
my vocabulary is so limited. But my cousin's English is really good, so we like text about stuff. And um she we it's like we only talk about like really serious, deep, meaningful stuff that I know that she can't talk about with the people in her life, you know, like day to
Mm,
day. And but it's like in her to, of course, in all of us to talk about it. We all want to talk about what's like going on inside. And well, how do you then do you feel like your music is part of like your mental health, self-care, kind of like your own therapy, like, or is do you do something else to kind
mm,
of, you know, just take care of
yeah,
yourself?
that's a great question because I always tell people I think I went backwards with music. I've always loved music, especially classical music. Like I grew up with it. My mom probably listened to it a lot when she was pregnant with me. Like I've always loved it. But the relationship I had with music was, like I said, very rigid. And I also think it was my first introduction to feeling seen and like I had a voice. I was painfully shy. Like when I say I did not talk when
Mm.
I was little. And I think this was the first time I was like, oh, I also didn't do well in school. I didn't do well in school and I was always sad. Like I was always carrying really big emotions and um this was kind of the first time that I felt like I'm good at something. Like I could see that if I put in work in this way, I would get attention, I perform, I get praise, and this just feels really good. But I think the passion kind of developed later. And it was after I was really forced to not function that way because I reached a breaking point where it just wasn't working anymore and I couldn't suppress my feelings anymore. I was suffering so much and I had to get help. You know, I ended up in the hospital one day and they were like, "Are you in therapy?" Like, "No, I'm not. I've never been in therapy. I've never been on medication. I've never talked about this. I didn't think anything was wrong ever. I thought everybody just felt this way and that they weren't talking about it." And so yeah, I had to start going to therapy. They diagnosed me with borderline personality disorder, which I don't like. I am open about it, and I think I want to share. I just want to put this out there that I want to connect with the BPD community. I think it's very important for me to for them to see that like you don't have to identify entirely with the diagnosis to treat it and for it to be a valid experience. um, but anyway, so then I ended up in therapy and I was going to a lot of therapy and my body was burned out and I had to stop practicing the way I was and I had to be like, I just need to take the time that I have and really make the best of it. And that forced me to kind of discover a new relationship with music. So that was one chapter. And then I feel like when COVID happened, it took me to another level of questioning like how does mental health tie into music, like my career with music, because I felt so passionate about mental health and sharing my story with people and studying about it, but I felt like it was disconnected. I was like, I don't know how to combine these two things. Um, because at most, I don't know, I kind of just felt like, to answer your question, sorry, I get on these tangents, but
No, it's really good.
but to answer your question directly, I feel like mainly, you know, I would play and I do feel like I always say this that when people if someone wants an emotionally moving performance, an honest, authentic experience, like I will deliver that in all of my performances. I feel like that is my strength. I might not get all the notes right. It might not be like this perfect thing, but like I am a very emotional performer. And if you are looking for that, you will get it. And in that sense, I do feel like music and mental health and all of that it's connected, and like I'll play pieces that I feel really connected to when I'm sad or feeling down and I feel a sense of purpose, or like reading about the composers biographies and who have, like, a lot of them have suffered immensely.
Mm.
I feel I feel like that's all connected, but now I'm kind of starting to, especially in this program, I'm starting to figure out ways to like really incorporate psychology, mental health more with my music. Like my research, I think I haven't completely solidified everything yet, but I would really like to combine like psychology and how like the trauma factors that are involved in specifically in being a classical musician in classical music culture and um, how we can like including racism and like lack of inclusivity and representation. I feel like this is kind of the direction that I'm headed toward, and it feels very fulfilling. I feel for the first time like this is what I want to do. Like I want to lecture about this. I want to travel. I want to do performances when I feel like it. Like I don't want that pressure to like always have to perform because it does give me a lot of anxiety. But yeah, that's where I am right now. I'm happy.
I mean, I think that's incredible. I think, and it makes so much sense because music is so emotional. Even just
Mm-hmm.
listening to it, right? Like people obviously have like they connect with certain genres or like specific songs or artists, like even just as like a listener or like so to then be an actual like performer or creator on the other side, like of course it's so connected to who you are.
Right.
And I think it's interesting that you said like a lot of the composers that you love and who you play, like they experience a lot of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think of I mean, beautiful art so frequently has come from suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
From like what is considered to be negative experiences or emotions, pain, and then to create something beautiful out of it. I feel like there's the level of catharsis that is
Absolutely. Yeah.
happening, and also the just like the power of transforming your pain
Yes.
into
I was
beauty and
just talking
art.
about this. I was just
Yeah.
talking about this because that is very important to me, and I have found time and time again it through different mediums too, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but I have felt like if I can make meaning out of my pain in some way and create turn it into something else, whether it's like helping another person or poetry or whatever, the pain just, I don't want to romanticize it, but like it becomes a really
Mm.
beautiful thing. I also want to say though that I think that there are some artists who are like, they feel that that is lacking and so they go looking for pain. They're like, oh, I have to be suffering, you know.
Mm.
But I think a lot of times we're drawn to this field because it hurts and it
Mm.
just like I need to do something with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, and what a just powerful choice to do something with it, you know? Her for people listening and can't see, her bird just flew right into the camera. That was so cute.
He knows where it is. He like
Right.
wants to block where I'm looking. He's like,
Right,
look at
right,
me.
right, right. That, oh my God, that's so hilarious. I'm not even sure what I was saying. Something about pain and
Yeah, what were we talking about?
it was perfect timing when he came in.
Oh
Like,
my
yeah, yeah.
god, I'm
Well, it was a
sorry.
whole no, 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 no. But it's fun. It's the thing is there's also this thing of we can get stuck in our pain and stuck in our trauma, and
Mm-hmm.
it can weigh us down. And like that's not the point of being human. It's also not the right thing to pretend like it's not there, right? To repress
But
it.
we can't anyway.
That's
For not for too
problematic, and
long.
no, it will come out in other ways. But like hopefully where we're meant to go is a place of joy and service to others, and like taking the lesson from it. I like but if there's also timing, I feel like, because if I were listening to this conversation, like when I was in my darkest of dark postpartum days, I would not have been ready to hear this, like the whole, like, oh, yeah, it's great to have pain. You're going to become a beautiful musician from
Right,
it or
right.
whatever else. Like, it's like the timing has to be right because when you are in it, um,
Yes.
like it's awful and but you have to go through it, right? Like the only
Yeah.
way out is
Don't,
through
right.
or
I
whatever
think
that
about that all
saying
the
is.
time. Yep.
Yeah, and like um and but it's it can be really overwhelming. It is usually really overwhelming when you're in it, right? And just to like try, I guess it's like take one moment at a time, put one foot in front of the other, just those tiny things just to get yourself through. And it's great to be at a point now, and I really relate to you on it, where you're like, oh wow, I can like do something beautiful and wonderful and helpful with it. And I do think that is the ultimate purpose of everyone's suffering, but it's like it's kind of easier said than done, or it's like you can't like rush getting to that point, and
It need the pain I feel in my experience, and I'm still working on this. It's about validation. Like the only way out is through, but you also like the only way out is with a lot of validation, self nurturing, being in a community where you are supported and not judged for your experience. And that took me also a very long time to learn because I tried to treat my mental health the same way I did piano, which is I knew exactly with piano, I know exactly what I need to do to get a certain result. And with my mental health, it was like I'm doing all the things. I'm exercising, I'm drinking enough water, I'm reading all the books, I'm listening to the podcast, everything, meditating. And the one thing I was not doing was just sitting and validating how I feel. It doesn't matter how awful the world thinks it is, like how much they will shame you for how you feel, especially in the BPD community. Like there's such a big stigma, and BPD has the highest suicide rate. So
mm,
that just is it's horrible, and I feel like we have to get to the point where it doesn't matter who you are, you have to validate your experience. There's no controlling what comes up. Like your body will bring that stuff up and it has to be addressed.
yeah. um Going back to the anxiety doctor,
Yes.
who really just like what his messaging really got through to me, the words he uses, and when he talks about anxiety and how it's an alarm being sounded in your body,
Mm-hmm.
and that the alarm is trying to help you, and it will keep sounding until you acknowledge it and figure
Mm-hmm.
out what it's like signaling to. It just like the way he talks about anxiety in that way, or fear, as opposed to like, oh, there's something wrong with you. You
Mm-hmm.
have you are anxious, or you're whatever, fill in the blank with all the terms, and society deeming like, oh, what's wrong with that person? Why, like, or like the whole, why are you feeling that way? You have no reason to be feeling that way. You're like,
Yes, that
there's people,
question.
yeah, like there's people way worse off than you. What do you have to be, what are you anxious about? What are you depressed about? Like, um, just hit the way he just explained it, almost in this very logical, kind of like
Yeah.
logical explanation, just like, it's something in you that's
Yeah.
a lot like notifying you that something's off, wrong, dangerous, whatever. And you got to do something about that alarm, and um, just being able to understand it that way and talk about it that way. It's just, yeah, because it is going to be expressed. You can only keep a lid on it for so long, and it,
Mm-hmm.
it will
Mm-hmm.
explode. And I think the like harder you're working to keep it from coming out, the worse like that explosion
I
is going
can.
to be, right?
I can confirm. Yep. And going
Yeah.
back real quick to the logic, explaining it in a logical way, that really helped me because I had heard, especially growing up very religious, I've heard a lot of people tell me, "You are worthy, you are loved, it's okay as you are." But I would always be like, "But why? Why? Like, what
Mm,
makes me worthy?" And then when you actually, I feel like the science, the research, it does explain why you are still worthy. I don't think is even a real thing. Like, we all have value simply because we exist. Our bodies are meant to protect us, and that's it. Like, that helped me so much, like understanding the function of emotions and how trauma works. Like, it's just so validating. Like, I could no longer hear like, "You are loved," and you you
hmm.
know
Yeah.
why though?
Yeah. 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 I totally get that. Oh my God. I feel like I could talk to you forever, but
I
I'm
know.
like very conscious of the time and like, God, what's the
I know
lot?
this is
Maybe
something I could really talk about this forever.
I know. I mean, it's so important. I mean, when I do want to ask something. We'll bring it back to where we started with uh social media and kind of how you present yourself publicly. When in you kind of you left it for a year and then you came back and you started a new account. And like what was your goal? Like what were you thinking, when you started it,
Yeah,
that what
yeah.
you wanted to, like contribute to whoever's following you.
Um, before I deleted it, I I I have always talked about mental health, but I think before it was talked about in a way that was more so focused on me, and I didn't know I was doing this, but I think it was more for like I just wanted my pain validated. I followed all these accounts, these BPD accounts, because it just made me feel comforted and like, misery loves company, that kind of thing. Like, I just wanted to feel that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think when I took the break, and started IFS therapy, which is like a trauma therapy, and it's very, I don't know how to say this word, non pathologizing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it started to put everything in a different light, and so my content started to look different. I feel like now I share more other aspects of myself too. That's why I share my piano content, I share like more lighthearted things, I share about my bird, and I share about trauma, and I still include like BPD talk. Um, but I think it's important for me to share that, like, at this point, the knowledge that I've had, the experiences I've had, it just feels like I need to make meaning of that. I need to help people because people are really, really suffering right now. I think like we are in a collective crisis, and especially in the BPD community, like I said, there's just so much. I have seen so much pain in that community, and I've experienced it. I still experience it, and I'm like, this is my way. Partly of like making meaning of it, and I've made so many friends too. So many
Mm.
friends. Yeah, like
Yeah.
you, like connecting with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is gonna be like, I hope like a lifelong
Totally.
connection.
Yeah.
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 So.
I think I love that you had the intention of showing the multiple parts of who you are. You're not just your diagnosis, you're not just your
Yes.
music, you're not just your race or any other identify. It's like and I think that's what drew me so much is to your profile. And I was just really fascinated. I'm like, wow, how is she doing this? Like, because so before I mentioned I taught yoga, and I felt like I always had to put yoga content out there, like I have to. That's why people are following me. I have to do that. And then that was a real part of my mental distress once I became a mom, because it was like, wait, I'm not just a yoga teacher anymore. I'm like like trying to figure out this mom thing, you know,
Oh.
and then it was like, wait, I've gone through like a mental health breakdown. Like, how do I get that involved? Like, do I only, but it's like, no, we're not compartments. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we're not just like neat. We're like interacting like different like layers
Exactly.
of who we are. And just to be able to put that out there, because that also gives permission to other people that, oh, I am all these things. Like, right? Like
Yes.
maybe I'm struggling with physical health, mental health, work, whatever. And also, like, I saw a beautiful sunset that I would really like to, you know, record or whatever. And just being like, being an example of somebody who doesn't have things all easy and figured out.
It's
And it,
human. It's human,
yeah, it's just
really. It's
being
like just
human.
an
Yeah.
honest way to show up. Yeah.
Totally. But like, it's just not, you know, not everybody, it's not that common, you know, it just
Mm-hmm.
isn't. And I think especially in Asian communities, it's not, because there's that saving face thing too, you know, like that is
Yeah. Yeah.
part of many cultures, but I think a pretty severe part of Asian American culture.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I'm so happy that I met you. I'm glad I went back on Instagram because there's people like you out there, and having these conversations, and just could ask you a billion more questions, but I think the producer's going to be like, what am I going to do with all this,
Yeah. Yeah.
all of this long recording?
Feel free to like, because I also I talk a lot. I talk a lot. I used to not talk as
Good.
a kid, but now I'm like, I'm very
No,
chatty. So
it's so good. And I really thank you for your openness and just sharing all your thoughts and experiences. And yeah, I'm so happy. So I'm so happy you did this, and I'm so happy we met.
I'm very happy too. This was
Um,
important for me, I think,
well,
especially in this chapter of my life. So I'm
I
grateful.
know it sounds like the timing is just right,
No, it was
which
perfect. It was
which I
perfect.
love. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that there is like divine timing in these big ways and these big sort of chapters or transitionary moments in our life.
Hmm.
And it's just like a reminder that, like, hey, you're in the right place. Like, keep
Yeah.
going there, you know,
I
which I
agree.
really love. Yeah. All right. Well, I will send you a draft of this when it's ready. It'll probably be a couple weeks, and
Okay.
we'll be in touch.
Okay, I'm
All right.
excited.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
All
have
right.
a good rest of the day.
Thank you too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.